Hello, everyone. With me now is Monali Shah, the Director of Intelligent Transportation from HERE Technologies. Monali, so excited to have you with us today.
It's great to be here, Will.
So HERE Technologies is a very dear friend and partner of GPS Insight, and Monali is actually a colleague of mine from a few years ago. So HERE Technologies is an organization with their backing in the digital map space. And since that time, they've brought forward some very exciting products, including predictive traffic, Internet of Things. They've played in that space. They're very involved in highly automated driving and smart cities as well. So today we're going to talk about smart cities and discuss some of the implications into the telematics space. So with that, I would love to sort of understand your role at the organization.
Sure. Yeah, what I really love doing is understanding market, customer, and societal challenges, and then taking that and leveraging our capabilities and our partners' capabilities to develop new solutions and products to address those challenges. So that's my role, is helping really develop the solutions based on the needs in the market.
Wow, so I mean, HERE's certainly come a long, long way from just providing digital maps. I mean, this is some really exciting stuff. So I know you come from a background in product development and strategy, so sort of through those lenses, what do you believe to be some of the most exciting things coming to the transportation and telematics space in, say, the next 10 years?
Yeah, it is really an exciting time in this space, and I see there's three main trends that I found particularly appealing. One is the fact that devices, people, vehicles are getting more and more connected. And with that, there's an explosion in data. The amount of data, the types of data, there's all kinds of new data coming online. So that's the first one. Second, there's also new business models. There's the on-demand, the sharing economy, and this also enables us to look at the world in a different way and how we solve these problems in a new way. And third is collaboration. We see a lot more collaboration happening both between the public sector and the private sector, between companies. And so when you take these three trends, the potential of addressing things like safety, mobility, transportation challenges in new ways is really exciting.
So we're not just talking about conceptual frameworks anymore. I mean, this is real stuff. This is actually happening today.
It is, yes.
That's exciting. So if we could take just a quick step back, what is smart cities?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's a broad term that's thrown around, and I would say, to put it simply, it's using data and technology to help cities operate more effectively and efficiently. There's a lot of topics that are encompassed within smart cities, but before I mention those, I want to just tell you that we talk about cities, but it's really states, countries, it's many levels of the government agencies and public agencies. So we'll say cities, but it's really broader than cities. The topics in smart cities range from mobility and transportation, public health, energy, building efficiency, governance. So it's a pretty broad range of topics. One of the areas that a lot of cities are focusing on is transportation and mobility. And you can see that large cities have experienced congestion for many years, right? Mid-sized cities are growing at these rapid rates, and that's resulting in a lot of congestion, right? They weren't designed for this level of population. And so they're really looking at how do we use data and technology to help address some of these challenges that we're facing. And that's the exciting opportunity in front of us.
Interesting. So I know you mentioned a little bit about this congestion problem, right? And I know cities like Chicago, New York, there's lots of these big cities all throughout the world that were built hundreds or thousands of years ago with horse and buggy and some of these older technologies in mind. And now it's 2018 and there's all sorts of other things and Amazon packages zipping around everywhere. So you're right, we can't change the networks, but we need to think about it in new ways. Are there any examples that you're aware of this actually happening today?
Yeah, so I'll give you a couple of examples. One is at the state level and then one is at the city level. So we work with the state of North Carolina, and what we do is we collect all this GPS probe data and turn it into real-time traffic information. And the state has to operate this whole road network across the state, all the highways, and they have the ability with our data to really be able to see what's happening on the road network. So if they have a construction project, a road improvement project, they actually use this data to understand how is the planning that they've done in terms of travel times and what they are expecting, how does that actually translate into reality? And they can measure using real-time data. Are they operating the way that they intend to, or do they need to make some adjustments? And so they use this kind of information for things like road construction projects and monitoring the overall network. Then you go to cities. Toronto is actually one of the first big cities using this kind of data at scale. And before they had access to this type of data, they'd put equipment out there and kind of go spot check and try to get some data in pockets of the city. But it's a lot harder to manage what's happening across the whole city by doing it with pockets of data. And so now they can look across their whole road network, all the streets, and be able to actually look across even modes of transportation and look at what's the impact of bikes in downtown Toronto, trucks, transit vehicles. There's all kinds of different analyses they can do to really understand what's happening on the road network, where should they be investing, and then when they make those investments, what's the impact of those, and being able to quantify that impact.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, that's, beyond some of the basics. That's really intricate, and it's amazing to be able to measure things like the impact on a bicycle program or bike lanes in a city. So burning question of the hour, how does telematics play into this?
Yeah, telematics is interesting because there's so much potential there, right? And I'll give you a couple of examples. One is the types of data that can be collected from vehicles, right? There's all kinds of interesting information about what's happening on the road network that can give cities insight about where there's congestion, accidents, things like that, that these systems can collect. And then the other side of it is being able for telematics systems to be able to use data and understand how to best optimize routes, what's happening on the road network, what's the best way to get to a particular location, whether it's a delivery vehicle or other types of vehicles, so they can really be efficient about how they travel through a city.
Interesting. And so I know you're talking about big data, and this is something that I believe we've all heard very recently, right? There's big data in the context of Facebook, of Amazon, Google, and we know everywhere we go, everything we do digitally is being collected and put in a cloud somewhere, but it hasn't seemed like anyone's really moved past that, right? There's just these big data ecosystems. But it sounds like with what HERE is working on in this framework, there's actually data being distilled down into these channels where people can actually take this information and use it in some meaningful ways and not just, be sort of unaware on how they can actually make the impact.
Yeah, one of the things, when I'm working with cities or states or any entities, it's really like, let's start with what's the problem we're trying to solve, and then look at what's the right data to help address the issue, because we don't want to just collect all kinds of data just for the sake of collecting data, right? It's expensive, it takes processing, and to make sure that it's really useful data, you have to do work to get it there. And so it's really looking at what are the problems we're trying to solve and then collecting only the information that can help us address those particular issues and make sure that we can do it with the right level of rigor.
Absolutely. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So as smart cities, as telematics develop and grow, what do you see as some of the most useful additions sort of coming down the road?
Yeah, I'll describe a couple different dimensions. One is on the driver behavior side, and there's a potential of really improving the safety related to drivers. And so that means things like the sensors on the vehicles, the video technology, right? Things that can help us really understand what's the behavior. Are there anomalies? Are there particular things we need to do to help target training? And that can really help improve safety on the driver's side. The other side of it is on more the road and the broader usage of the road. Are there things happening on the road that impact safety? And being able to get that information to the drivers and to those of us driving passenger vehicles so that we understand what's happening ahead on the road and we can make better decisions about slowing down or avoiding accidents and things like that. So there's potential on both sides.
Wow, so it sounds like this isn't just frameworks that are helping government agencies or cities, but it sounds like it's coming down to the business level and even the individual user level in some really impactful ways. And this reminds me too of sort of like a Waze app, right, where we have this crowdsourced data coming in and there's GPS probe data, but there's also, hey, I saw a police officer over there, or hey, there's an accident on the side of the road here. So is it like that or is it maybe different?
So what's exciting now is that we're getting to the next generation of crowdsourced data. So it's not necessarily us as users having to put information, it's coming directly from those sensors on the vehicle. And so we're actually getting that kind of data from BMW, Daimler, and Audi, where they're sharing specific sensor data, things like hard braking, being able to detect slippery road conditions, accidents. Information like that that comes directly from the vehicle sensor data that then we process and anonymize, and now we can send that information out to alert drivers as to safety hazards. So that's the next generation of crowdsourcing.
That's really exciting. I mean, I'm sure we could all think forward to an exciting future where the roads are safer and we can worry less and insurance deductibles perhaps are lower. That's very exciting. So as this continues, what do you believe some of the organizational impacts might be to fleet management organizations?
Yeah, if we look at the world today, there's so many new things happening, right? You have on-demand services, you had shared vehicles, automated vehicles, transit, personal use. There's all kinds of different dynamics happening. And so what we see now is there's really more of this intersection between what's happening in cities and those who are operating in cities. And so cities are going to be more involved in some of these decisions, like where can passengers be dropped off? We already see that with the on-demand services. Packages, where can they be delivered? So there's these kind of intersections, because if you think about it, if you just sort of let it all happen, it could create a lot of chaos, right? And a lot more congestion. And we're starting to see some of that already. And so now there's this intersection where cities and those who are managing fleets need to interact more so that the whole system can operate more efficiently, because those who are delivering packages and goods need to get to their destinations. We as people who are moving around the cities need to get to our locations, and so being able to operate that effectively is really important. And we're actually doing a pilot with the city of Chicago. There's an organization called the City Tech Collaborative that's kind of the innovation test bed for the city of Chicago. And we're tackling this issue of this urban logistics last mile delivery, because it's a complex issue, right? We're all ordering more packages, there's food delivery services, a restaurant, all kinds of new services that are coming up, which is, great from a consumer perspective, but we have to really think consciously about how to manage those services so we don't just create more and more problems and congestion in the city. And so we are working collaboratively across the ecosystem with companies like UPS, MasterCard, Microsoft, Accenture, and really in the city of Chicago, and coming together and say, okay, let's start with identifying and scoping some of these problems, and then look at the types of data that these different entities have, ourselves and other partners, and then generating insights about what's happening, what are the problem areas. And ultimately what we want to do is look across the supply chain to see where can we introduce some flexibility into the system. Like, do we really need that package tomorrow? Are there off-peak times that these deliveries can happen? Where can we kind of alleviate some of that stress and strain in the system so that it makes it easier for everyone to operate?
Absolutely. And it sounds like this is really a twofold improvement sort of scenario where not only are the cities able to improve and optimize traffic flow and make things work more efficiently, but field service companies are also able to not only traverse these improved roadways and networks, but also take this information and improve their situations as well. So it's sort of an exponential improvement, if I have that correct.
Yeah, that's right. There's so much potential when you start looking across these intersections.
So I'd love to just sort of understand from your perspective, we've talked about government and that side of things and what we'll do for businesses. What will the Smart Cities framework and potentially its integration with telematics do for just the average citizen, the average Joe Schmo?
Yeah, well, the whole reason that cities are taking on these initiatives is really to improve the lives of citizens, right? That's at the core, and create opportunities for economic growth. That's a core and fundamental part of why these efforts are underway. And if you look at the amount, of data, it helps increase transparency, trust, efficiency in cities, and ultimately that helps create more livable cities, healthy, safer cities for all of us. And that's really what's driving a lot of these efforts.
Wow. Well, I could certainly put my rose-colored glasses on with this and really think to this amazing future where roadways are less congested, My field service company can get my drivers more efficiently. And even some of these, more future thinking things like if my driver's rerouted, I could let my customer know ahead of time that they've been rerouted and what caused the delay and when they'll be there with a highly accurate ETA. So this is really some powerful stuff. I thank you so much for being with us today.
Yeah, it's great to be here. We're at a very exciting time in this space where and we're just at the beginning. There's the potential to make an impact across all these different dimensions and these different entities is really exciting.
Great. Well, thank you again so much for being a part of today. I think I've learned certainly quite a bit, and I hope everyone else has as well. So thanks so much for being a part of today, and I'll hand it back to you, Jason.